in mid 2000s, we were trying to figure out how can we market Tapout in a way that we could get on regular people out there who had maybe never heard of us or didn't watch The Ultimate Fighter regularly. And we had heard through the UFC that they were going to do this show called Ultimate Fighter, which was, we didn't even know the name of it, but we knew it was going to be a television show that would be on regular TV. Now, we didn't know how they were going to do that or what that would look like, but I can remember I was driving to San Diego and my partner Charles called me and said, hey, you got to go to Vegas right now. Chuck Liddell just called me and he is starting The Ultimate Fighter this week. They're starting to film, so we got to grab a bunch of clothes and let's jump in the car, and we're driving to Vegas, which was about a 4-hour drive. So I turned around, drove back home, went to our small little shop, grabbed a bunch of our stuff, and jumped in the car. So I went and picked up Charles, drove the 4 hours to Vegas, and we didn't have the money to actually get a hotel room, or we didn't want to spend it. And so we went over to Chuck Liddell's place and slept on his couch. And then every single night, we had found out where the Ultimate Fighter gym was going to be at. So every single night we would sneak over there at like 1 a.m. and get our clothes. And you know those little mail slots that have like that are in the door and kind of sideways, and you can kind of stuff the mail in there. Well, we would stuff clothes in there, and we'd put like 10 shirts, a couple pairs of shorts, and some tank tops, and a few hats. And we do this every single night, just hoping, because we're just hoping that somebody on this show is going to wear our stuff. Now, the producers told us, no, we're not taking any sponsorship, and they can't wear any Tapout, and that's not going to happen. So after doing this for a couple months, and then of course when we would get home to Chuck Liddell's, for letting us stay there, we would wash his clothes for him. So when he'd come home, he'd have clean clothes because he was going on the set every day to film. Well, he doesn't know this, he'll probably know this now, but we would only wash his Tapout stuff. So he would come back and he would have all these other shirts that weren't clean that he couldn't wear, so he would have to wear the Tapout stuff to the episode. Now, when the episodes finally finished years later, we talked to the producer. They're like, there's no way there's Tapout stuff in there. But if you ever watch the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, you'll see that Tapout stuff got in the show. So in 2005, the Ultimate Fighter finale was coming, and we got to the event, and I can remember at one point during the show, Dana White walks back to Chuck Liddell and says, there's 10 million people watching this show right now. And there's something about, you just knew the electricity in the air. It was like, you knew there was something special going down. And we had no idea because we did not know what the Ultimate Fighter would actually do for the business. I mean, it was just a show that was on television, but it changed the landscape. And basically Dana White says, and Lorenzo said that it saved the UFC, and it really is what built Tapout. That night we had several fighters wearing it. We were on the ring, and I didn't even have the money to sponsor the show. We had to trade clothing that would be sold at the event for the opportunity to be able to sponsor the Ultimate Fighter show. And that day they said, this show's been brought to you by Tapout at inyourface.com, because that's all we owned at the time. Over the next few months, there was a bunch of craziness because we had so many orders, we couldn't fill them all. We didn't have the product to fill them. We didn't have an inventory system, so we were selling stuff that we didn't even have in stock. But overall, it changed our business forever. And we went from, we were probably doing a couple million. It sounds like a few $1 million at the time, but we were barely making it because every penny was going back into the business. And, the rest is history. So pretty incredible time back then. And you'd see that one little thing sometimes can just change your whole world. You never know where that's going to come from. You just got to keep pushing forward.